What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. This is my main event breakdown and prediction for UFC 291. We have Dustin Poirier going against Justin Gaethje 2.
I need all the wins, yeah. All that and all that is. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out.
And we are back with another breakdown and prediction. This week we are breaking down the main event for UFC 291. We have the rematch, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje 2. It is for the BMF title. We have 5 rounds to work with here. If you guys have watched their first fight, you know that this fight is going to be an absolute banger. If you guys have not watched their first fight, I highly recommend to do so because that fight was awesome, and I think this fight is going to deliver 100%. So really looking forward to it. Before we break it down and give the prediction, if you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. It's much appreciated. Be sure to check out, I did a co-main event breakdown, breaking down the Alex Pereira and Jan Blachowicz fight, and then also be on the lookout for the full card breakdown, breaking down all 12 fights for UFC 291. Lots of betting spots sticking out on this card, and just overall, really good card. Really looking forward to UFC 291. I think it's one of the better pay-per-views of the year. So I say we get right into it, though. We're going to break down Poirier Gaethje. We'll start with Dustin Poirier. He is 34 years old, 5'9", with a 73-inch reach, 29-7, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Justin Gaethje is 34 years old, 5'11", with a 70-inch reach, 24-4, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds, and we see that Dustin Poirier opened up -125, currently -140. Justin Gaethje opened up +105. It's currently +120. So very well-matched fight here. I think this fight could potentially play out a lot similar than the first fight, but we have, this fight is in Salt Lake City, and there is going to be elevation, and I'm going to talk about, the elevation in Salt Lake City for a lot of matchups on the card for 291. I think, there's a lot of matchups that could potentially affect, but this matchup is not really one of them just because Dustin Poirier, we know his cardio is phenomenal. He can go 25 minutes, no problem. And Justin Gaethje is a guy that already does train at elevation in Colorado. So I don't think the fact that this is in Salt Lake is really going to affect these two, but I do think it's going to affect some of these fighters on this card. Going back to the first fight, which, like I said, it was a classic. I mean, this fight was so good. Justin Gaethje implemented those leg kicks early. Looked like he kind of compromised Poirier's legs early. Poirier was kind of able to fight through it. I love the combinations of Poirier in that fight. It's just very, very high volume. And kind of going back to their fight, which at this point, it was like 5 years ago. So we can't take a ton from that first fight. But at the same time, these guys haven't really changed much. I mean, Justin Gaethje's always had those heavy leg kicks. Justin Gaethje's always, swinging very, very hard, trying to take off the head of his opponent. Dustin Poirier has always, had that very high volume style. He's a guy in Poirier who doesn't have a ton of power, but he kind of really puts it on you, and that damage starts to add up throughout the fight, and that's kind of what happened in the first fight. Kind of looking through the numbers here, Dustin Poirier outlanded Justin Gaethje 174 to 115 overall, and that's kind of to be expected. Dustin Poirier, I think, is going to be the higher volume striker, and like I said, not necessarily the same amount of power, the same amount of impact when they land in terms of Justin Gaethje. Gaethje has so much power with the kicks especially, but in the hands as well. But Dustin Poirier is probably going to be, the minute winner. He's probably going to be landing a lot more as this fight goes on, especially. As I mentioned, Gaethje does train at elevation. I think his cardio is very good, but he's a guy that I don't know if he manages his gas tank all that well. We've seen in multiple fights through Gaethje's career where he does tend to slow down, kind of get broken in a way as fight goes on. We saw it in the Eddie Alvarez fight. Alvarez just really put it on him and eventually landed a big knee in the 3rd round, finished him shortly after. And then we saw in the Poirier fight, Poirier landed a big shot early 4th round and finished Justin Gaethje late in the fight. Justin Gaethje has taken a ton of damage throughout his career, and he took a ton of damage in that Poirier fight as well. I went and looked at, how many times Poirier landed on Justin Gaethje. So he landed 11 times to the leg, 21 times to the body, and get this, Dustin Poirier landed 142 times to the head. I mean, that adds up, as the fight goes on. Whereas Justin Gaethje landed a ton of leg kicks, 50, which was awesome to see. I loved how he invested in those leg kicks. But he only landed 56 head strikes compared to Dustin Poirier's 142. So I think these guys are just going to stand and bang, as long as this fight goes on. I would like to see Poirier grapple here. It's something I don't expect really at all. I think in terms of jiu-jitsu, Dustin Poirier is like a level above Justin Gaethje. It's just taking down Gaethje is very hard to do, and then holding down Gaethje is even harder to do. So especially early on, I don't see a scenario where Dustin Poirier takes down Justin Gaethje. I don't think he's even going to try. But maybe mixing in takedowns here or there, as this fight goes on, could be something to look at. And if Poirier is able to maybe secure position on top, I think he could sub Justin Gaethje. It's just securing position against Justin Gaethje is very hard to do. Especially early, like I said. Like typically when Justin Gaethje is getting taken down, he's popping right back up, and that was the case in their first fight. Dustin Poirier did try to take down Justin Gaethje, got him down for like a split second, but Gaethje was right back up. So I do expect these guys to primarily strike, and like I said, I think it's going to be the big hard shots of Justin Gaethje compared to kind of the. Don't want to say Poirier has no power. He has some power, but I think he's going to just be landing a lot more volume, a lot more combinations. I like Dustin Poirier's hands quite a bit. And then obviously the leg kicks of Gaethje are going to be a big factor as well. I think these guys are super well matched. I just kind of trust Dustin Poirier the more this fight goes on. I think these guys are super tough. But I think Dustin Poirier is probably the tougher of the two. Dustin Poirier has been knocked out twice in the UFC, but the guy's had so many UFC fights compared to Gaethje. I'm not sure the exact number, but it's got to be like 2-1. I mean, Dustin Poirier's been in the UFC for a long time, and he has a ton of UFC fights where Justin Gaethje, he's been in the UFC for a while as well, but he doesn't fight anywhere close to as frequent as Dustin Poirier. We have seen Justin Gaethje, he got dropped by Charles Oliveira, which wasn't the best look, and he kind of looked off in that fight. And then he got knocked out by Dustin Poirier, and then he got knocked out by Eddie Alvarez as well. Whereas Dustin Poirier, like I said, this guy has to have like close to 25 UFC fights. He's only been knocked out once, and once was against Conor McGregor in the first fight back in 2014, and then against Michael Johnson, which came out of just really nowhere. But typically, Dustin Poirier is next level tough. His cardio is phenomenal as well. I do think he's going to have the cardio down the stretch, and I think it's kind of going to look like the first fight. I mean, it's hard to watch that fight and kind of see it play out any differently. I think it's going to be the volume of Poirier, the power, the big shots of Gaethje, the leg kicks, and I think as this fight goes on, that volume is going to start to add up, and I think Poirier is eventually going to get Justin Gaethje out of there in that third, fourth, or fifth round. So I'm going to take Dustin Poirier to win this fight. I am going to take him to win it. I'll say third round knockout here. Again, we are in an elevation, but I don't think that's going to affect these two that much. So, but maybe it does. Maybe it does. But I like Poirier here to finish Justin Gaethje down the stretch. The leg kicks of Gaethje really worry me. Those big shots of Gaethje really worry me. Michael Chandler did have some success in terms of landing some big shots against Poirier, but like I said, Poirier is just next level tough. Next level tough. I mean, it's hard to see Gaethje going out there and sparking Dustin Poirier, to be honest. So I think these guys are gonna stand and bang until one man falls, and I just trust Dustin Poirier's cardio durability just a little bit more in a fight that I think is going to be just an all-out war. So give me Poirier to win this fight, third round finish. In terms of any spots sticking out, don't love the money line for Poirier. I think minus 125, minus 150 is kind of where I put him there. So minus 140. Don't love it necessarily. I think this fight's going to be very competitive, especially early on. And then in terms of the over-under, they have it set at 2.5 rounds. This over is getting smacked, which I get it to an extent. I think it probably like squeaks over just ever so slightly. But I see this fight finishing inside the distance at some point. Both these guys are very dangerous, and these guys are going to hit each other in the face a million times. So, but I think this finish could come in like the third, fourth, or fifth round. So in terms of like the over-under 2.5, I don't have a strong read on that. I guess it would like ever so slightly lean towards the over, but again, just ever so slightly. So no bets on this fight for me yet. But in terms of a pick, I am going to pick Dustin Poirier to win this fight. Should be a phenomenal main event. Can't wait for it. I'm a huge fan of Justin Gaethje. This guy has made me a lot of money in his career. and he's just never in a boring fight. Really, both guys never in a boring fight. You know, this is just a very, very good main event. So looking forward to it. But yeah, that's about it. Going with Poirier. Let me know what you guys have down in the comments. Let me know if any bets are sticking out. If you guys could, on your way out, leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. I do appreciate that so much. Be on the lookout for the full card breakdown, breaking down all 12 fights on this amazing card. Phenomenal pay-per-view. One of the best pay-per-views of the year. So be on the lookout for that. And best of luck for UFC 291. We'll talk to you guys later. See ya.